Hey guys, this is Natalie Callback, and I'm here with my dear friend Natalya Khorover Akins. And I'm super excited to have you. So, Natalia, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you. So, Natalia and I, we've met a couple of years ago. She is a wonderful artist. Um, Her tag byline of her website is actually architecturally inspired, I think it is. And
Yes.
so that gives you a clue why anything she does has drawn me in. She does wonderful art with all kinds of stitching, sewing, recycled, upcycled materials, and we will talk about it a little bit later. I purchased a beautiful artwork from her a while ago, which was made from one-use plastic bag art, and it's one of my favorite artworks that we have in our living dining room area. And Natalia is also a fantastic teacher, and she lives in upstate New York, and I thought it would be,
No, not upstate New York, just north of New York City.
oh boy, here we go. The old, for those people of you who don't come from New York or the New York region, that is a big thing. Like if you do that wrong and there's a big fight, it's almost like Jersey where you say, is there central Jersey or not? And then what is upstate New York and what's not upstate New York? So she is in the New York City metropolitan area.
That's right. Yes, the tri-state area.
As we say too, we like to say that here in Jersey City too. We're in the New York City metropolitan area. So since we have that established, Natalia, tell us a little bit more in your own words about your work and what your studio situation was before COVID-19 and what it is now.
Well, my studio situation remains the same because for now my studio is in my home and it has been for a few years now. I'm sitting here now. Um, what changed is all my teaching gigs either got canceled or got moved to the fall, where hopefully they will take place then. Um, and my side gigs, my part-time jobs have got canceled because those were had to do with the local school district.
Mm.
But I have a little more time in my studio to work on my own things. I have actually time to work on commissions more, which is nice. Um, and they've actually been coming through. So it's okay. It hasn't changed badly. There's not as many jobs coming in because of the teaching gigs, but otherwise, I'm grateful to be in a place where I have a roof over my head. I can buy food for myself and my family, and I'm not on the front lines. I can stay safely sheltered at home. So I'm grateful for that. It's a place of privilege to be. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, it's such a mind shift and way of having that perspective. I think that whenever you feel like, oh, I wish I could go out now and do something, you're like, well, you know, it's a pretty privileged and nice way to just keep safe and you can stay at home and you don't have to go out, right? So it's a good reminder to
Exactly.
just like tell yourself that every day.
Yes. And I'm in a pretty suburban area, so I can take my dog for a 2-mile walk every morning. And I get out that way and I don't see too many people. So that is nice.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and it's actually probably better for me not to have to go to the supermarket every other day like I used to.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it changes also the way how we do those things, right? So I'm super grateful about the garden, so maybe the garden will survive this year.
There you go. You can plant some vegetables and then you don't have to go to the supermarket.
I did plant some, or I did sow some salads. The garden calendar said they should have sprouted already, so I don't know what I did wrong, but we shall see.
Uh, Well, lucky for you, you can grow some salad. My salad would be gone instantly, but there's a herd of deer
Oh
outside.
yeah, right. See, there is something good about this.
Yes.
So Natalia, you just hinted that before, but let's get in a little bit into your work. You said commission, and there's actually that's on my list. I want to commission you. But what is it? What we can come to you? What is the work? Because it's so beautiful. I love the whole thought about it. What is it? What you do that is like, your art? It's like it's you. It's not like you're stretching yourself out to do a commission, which is sometimes really hard. But we can talk about that too later. What is it? What you do as commission artwork?
Okay, so my main commissioned artwork that I do for people is called a home portrait. So people collect ephemera from their home, like let's say if they built a new home, perhaps the paper plans for the new home, a scrap of wallpaper, or I don't know. So, I mean, sometimes people collect things that are just meaningful to them. Like if somebody sent me a pair of mittens that have
Hmm.
worn beyond repair, that kind of thing. Some tissue paper from a gift. I've actually made one. Speaking of gifts, I've made one from completely from somebody's the cards that they received for their wedding. So, wedding gift cards they collected and their wedding invitation. So ephemera that's meaningful to people. Some people have sent me a digital copy of a deed to their home from 1850 something or something like that. So I use things like that that are meaningful to the owners of the home. And I collage it all together and make a portrait of their home for them. Sometimes I use the materials that they actually send me and I'll stitch right on top of that, like those wedding cards. And sometimes they send me just digital materials, which I then print on fabrics or papers, and then I stitch on top of that. And some people just send me a photograph of their home or a place that's meaningful to them. Like I just did a wedding commission and it was of the wedding venue, but they didn't want to send me any materials. They said to use my own. So I made it all out of single-use plastic bags, which is my usual material.
Oh my God, it looked so good too. I saw, we got to put it into the video so that people see a peek of it. It was so amazing. Like I'm always, it blows my mind when I also see your, you do some step, like work in progress pictures. And it's just mind blowing how much work goes into this and how detailed your stitching is on these like unusual materials. So when people send these things to you, do you also, so you hear all these stories probably that are connected with the things that they sent you, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that something you feel like you're a storyteller in a way through your collage work, or?
Perhaps, it's meaningful. Some people will send me a sheet of music that they wrote. Um, I've had passport pages, so you can actually, you can see where people traveled, and I think that means a lot. I mean, I'm not making it obvious in the artwork because it's all a collage, but it's meaningful to them, and it's meaningful to me when I'm stitching it because I think about it.
That is so cool.
Mm.
I can't wait. I'm already having a folder where I collected some stuff. I
Okay.
didn't find like actual, like we didn't find a lot of like actual things, or it was then too late because our contractors just like, they don't see a
They
lot
cleaned
of
it up
worth in.
for you.
Yeah, they just like went for it. But I do have some photos and I have some fire maps, and I just got the tax deeds and some old
Mhm.
photos of the house, how it used to
That's
look
great.
like. So
Right.
I'm collecting all these things for you, and I wanna do this. So it's on my list. You're like, she
Wonderful.
dropped off the face of the earth. No, she didn't.
Hey, we all work at our own pace. It's all good.
Exactly. So when you do your art that's not, so wait, before we go back to that, I always feel it's interesting when people ask me if I can do something on commission, because I always feel like, whoa, this is gonna be tough because I don't know why they ask me if there's a certain painting or artwork that they saw and they feel like, I want the same, or they have a other picture in their head and I think I can make it so that it is something that they like? Or is it they just like the style and they want anything in that style? So I always feel super, super pressured when someone says, could you paint my house or could you do my house? And then I'm like, wee, this might be tough. How do you feel about it? Like, did you get used to it? Are you still kind of nervous or?
So I get nervous when I get asked for something completely out of my over, my usual. With the home portraits, it will be different because it will look like their home and the materials is their ephemera, but I make it pretty clear of what kind of work that I do. So they've seen examples. I just recently did a commission that had completely nothing to do with my architectural artwork, and I felt pretty nervous about it. But the reason those people asked me to do a commission is because I work with single-use plastic,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted they have a house in St. John, and they wanted me to depict the ocean that they love so much, which is threatened by the plastic
Yeah.
floating in it. So that's why they connected to my artwork. They know that I do architectural artwork and that I do some nature inspired, but it's mostly architectural. But the reason they came to me is because they made the connection with single-use plastic and the ocean. So I was a little nervous about that, but I, at the same time, thoroughly enjoyed it because it was something completely different. They provided me with a book of photographs of the flora and fauna that's in the ocean around them, and I just thoroughly enjoyed doing something different.
It looked amazing. You
Thank
can
you.
see it on Natalya's Instagram.
Yeah.
There are some detailed pictures of it, and I was like, this is so cool. So, Natalya, has drawn you to two things are in your work that is always there: architecture and recycling, upcycling material. What are these two things that, like, why is it, what draws you to it, and how did you think about combining these two things?
All right. Well, the architecture part, I think that's just has to be simple. I'm a city girl. I was born in St. Petersburg, Russia. Well, it was Leningrad, USSR at that time. So my formative years, I grew up in the city, and then we moved to New York, and I grew up in Queens. So when I went to high school in Manhattan, so I was always a city girl. And I just love architecture. I don't know. Maybe if my math skills were better, I would have become an architect. Who knows? But I just love architecture. I love visiting, other cities. I mean, I love nature too. Don't get me wrong, but I love the vibrancy and the excitement of the city. Whatever city it is, I love Europe, Asia, everywhere. I love visiting cities. And as far as single-use plastic, I've always been an avid recycler, and I was I was always saving things and being pretty thrifty. That's just the kind of upbringing that I had. And when I first started making artwork, I was using fabrics because I certainly had a lot of scraps left over from my costume design days. And I started saving plastic bags just because of the texture and the color, and I saving the ones that were attractive to me.
Mm.
And then one day, I don't really even remember exactly, but I think I needed a certain color in whatever I was doing, and I didn't have it in the fabrics, and I used the plastic, and I discovered that I can stitch it just like fabric, and it's pretty sturdy. And then eventually, I started using it a little bit, and then eventually I just completely use it most of the time. I still use fabric a little bit, but it's mostly plastic. I don't know. Here's my pile, my very messy pile right here. Can you see it?
Oh wow! Look at that. Are you getting
It's
like?
very messy. Whoops. It's very messy because I was just, rifling through it for a project.
Do you get like donations of single-use plastic bags that people have collected and they know you use it?
I do. Just like I used to get donations of vintage textiles, which I still have quite a stash of. I get donations of plastic. People just send me a package. I saved these for you, which is wonderful most of the time. Well,
Well,
especially actually now, I didn't used to appreciate it as much before, but now with use plastic ban in New York State, it's at some point it may be harder to come by.
which
Although,
is actually cool, right? It's like it's a cool thing,
it's a good thing.
and it will probably then you have to find something else, like as a material.
Maybe, but you know what? It's just a regular shopping trip to the supermarket, even if you go with your reusable bags, everything is still packaged. Those rolls of toilet paper and paper towels that are hard to come by, they come packaged in a plastic bag. Whatever you know, you buy cheese sticks for your kids, they come in a single-use plastic bag.
It's
So,
crazy the amount of plastic, really, if you think about it. I had my friends. My friend is a teacher in Germany, a very close friend, and one of her child. I mean, they are all mine, but they're like one is
yeah.
my godson. So we're very close, and they had this project in school where they were collecting in their households all the plastic that was used in the household for a week. And the amount of plastic that they collected during that week was insane. It made them really aware. I mean, they are very aware. They are very good with recycling, but it made them even more aware of where also crazy, like why would you wrap bananas or apples or things that don't need to be wrapped, right? So
Exactly. It's crazy. That's exactly the project I would have been doing at the school now. It got interrupted halfway. I was working with our local elementary school,
mhm.
and I was having each grade collect plastic in their home. They were then bringing it into school, and we were making artwork from
Oh, cool.
single-use plastic. That's exactly we did. The kindergartners did it, the fourth graders did it, third grade. So I only had 2 more grades to go until then schools got closed. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we were doing. We were collecting materials and making art from it. And
That leads me to a good question, actually. So now schools are closed, and I know from all the parents and my teacher friends that are, having good and bad times, as with everything in life, right? So for the schools that did art still in school, which thankfully some are, so is that not part of the curriculum right now?
no, I was a visiting artist. So it wasn't part of the regular curriculum. It was just added on. So unfortunately, well, yeah, I can't imagine that school will open up before the end of the school
No,
year.
yeah,
But if it does, hopefully they'll have time for me to come in and finish it, because it was going to be actually this week is Earth Week. Earth Day is on
yeah.
Wednesday. It was supposed to be all finished and installed at the school as a whole big installation. It was, for this week. So hopefully I'll get a chance to finish it this year. And if not, maybe we'll do it next year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I saw you doing some video tutorials which were like super fun, and they were short, and it was
Yeah.
about like actually using packaging from grocery shopping, making
Yeah.
artwork with
Well,
that.
yeah, that's exactly it. I actually made them for the school that I was just working at. I sent them to the principal, and then I shared it with everybody else. I figured, well, I was going to do this with them anyways. At least they can see, and maybe some of them will be inspired to do something at home.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I think that's important that, a lot of parents and also teachers, my teacher friend actually, she said, I wish that it wasn't just like all about grades, and it's a very tough time, and art, she's an art teacher too.
Uh-huh.
Funny enough, she's chemistry and art. Don't ask me.
Wow.
I know. But she said, it can't be all about like the art is very important right now, and it's a
Yeah.
really tough time for the children too. And so she's a high advocate of, let everything like be a little bit like calmer, like
No, I actually was contacted by an art teacher in a different school district that somehow saw my video and asked for, links to others. So hopefully, if there's art teachers out there that are using my little videos, that's great. I hope so. Because
Yeah.
I'm sure, yeah, if their kids are like mine, they have a ton of art supplies. But there's other kids that don't have art supplies, and the videos I made, all you need is scissors and a glue stick and some single-use plastic. So hopefully somebody's using them.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
did the whole situation and because I know we talked about how how we are grateful for the way how we can live right now, and I'm sure there are. I mean, we are empathetic people, so there's a lot of things going on with friends and family members, and family members of friends. So of
Yeah.
course that weighs on us. But is there also a way how you think you process that in your own artwork? Is there something that you're working on right now where you would think or say that changed a little bit how I approach this?
I'm not sure that I'm changing my artwork. I'm certainly, like, right now I'm working on something very big, but it's going to take a long time, and it's very meticulous hand stitching. So that is meditative.
Yeah.
So perhaps I'm doing a little more of that kind of thing. But I think what helped me process all this is actually mask making. I wound up making about 100 masks, and I'm going
Wow.
to make some more. They're being needed.
Yeah.
I couldn't really concentrate on my own work until I kind of got those masks out of my system, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that just made them, not knowing where they were going to go. And the first batch I called, there's a nurse that lives on our street, and she contacted me with somebody else, and they went to a pediatric oncology unit in a local hospital. And, I made a second batch, and I was actually finishing that batch of masks, and a friend texted me, and she said, "Oh, my daughter-in-law is working at this COVID unit in a hospital, and they need any masks. Do you have any?" I'm like, "Well, yes. As a matter of fact, I just finished a batch." So it was perfect. So
I found that highly, and I'm not you're a master person with that. I just opened up my sewing machine for the first time in 6 years. It was brand new. But this is interesting because I had this creative rut, and I pulled out the sewing machine. I made 15 masks, not 100. And it took me about 3 days. Half day was like figuring out the machine again.
oh,
Thank God making those is easy-ish. I
they're very
mean, depending.
simple. Yeah.
But I gave those to friends and family members. I sent some to family members. I gave some to our neighbors.
Mhm.
And it made me, it was a very, meditative and it felt like purposeful.
Exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not a frontline worker of any kind. So there's nothing, I can't be going to work every day somewhere. I don't have the skills or the knowledge to help on the front lines. So at least this is a little something that I'm doing that gives me a little bit of a control over a situation and the feeling of being helpful in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting how many people got back and took out their sewing machines and did that. I actually saw there's a Sashiko artist. He doesn't like to be called an artist. He's a Japanese.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a guy. It might be a woman. I don't know. It doesn't matter the gender, but it's very like you never see the person who has the Instagram account, but it's like showing meticulously like IGTV videos
Uh-huh.
of making the pieces. But he made these like beautiful masks actually for personal use or for
Uh-huh.
friends. And people were complaining and saying you shouldn't do that. This should be useful. And he was, or she, the person, the artist was like, well, yes, that's true for the ones, but this is like how I express my feelings and my thoughts and putting that out, and it doesn't mean that they cannot be artful or beautiful. It was very interesting, And it made me think of you too.
Well, there's actually been a couple of calls that I've heard, calls for artists to make masks for exhibit. So some kind of artistic masks. And I've seen some people post masks that are like more like, they're more like costumes, like they're beaks of birds and things like that. And you know what? It's artistic expression. There's nothing wrong with it. Um, there's a lot of quilters and crafters that I have actually, a friend of mine formed a website for them, and there's artists that are making masks, quilt artists that are making masks, and there's hospitals that are requesting them. So that's a wonderful thing, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with artistic expression. And if you want to, express your artistry in mask making that is not for use, but just for art, there's nothing wrong with that.
I think it's the same. I think there's a lot of terrible things going on right now, and there's a lot of stupid people out there too.
Yes.
But I also think we need to calm down a little bit in this like finger waving and being upset with everyone who doesn't seem to do what they should do. I mean, besides if they go out of the house and to the beach, that's a different topic. So,
we're not going to talk about those people.
Exactly. But like if someone makes masks, or if someone hides like little Easter eggs for kids, last week, and a friend told me that someone got like super upset about that this person would do that in the neighborhood. And I think like, you don't have to pick those up. Like,
right, exactly. No, there's actually a friend of mine, an artist, started a movement in her town where she's got kids collecting rocks, painting them, and putting like really nice signs on them, and then hiding them around the neighborhood. And I've seen other people in different states doing that too. I think that's wonderful.
That's lovely.
It's art, and it's being good to it's being used to lift somebody's spirits. And what's wrong with that?
Exactly. I do love there is so much. There's so much need for art and beauty right now. And seeing people doing all these things, or I just had a neighbor, my former neighbor in the old pencil factory, who actually posted privately. I would have shared it otherwise, but he had a video of him. He's a cellist, and he played the cello in the backyard, totally alone, and people were on the window. I was like, this is so beautiful. You get a private concert,
Yes.
And it was just beautiful. So I think it's like so interesting how much need there is for art. Do you think that changes people's perspective? I mean, we need a lot of changes in various different things.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that people might say, why don't we talk about, health insurance or other things first? But let me be assured that's on our mind as well. But we're talking about art in this interview. So as it coming to art, that's where people find their distractions, or they're going back to craft, etc. Do you think this is like something that will remain and people will remember that after this phase?
I can only hope so. Yeah, who knows what's going to happen, but I hope so, because I think, well, hopefully it makes people who don't participate in art making or art enjoyment on a regular basis, perhaps some of them have more time for that now, and hopefully that will stay with them and they'll remember that. I can only hope for that.
Me too. So you were saying you're working on something bigger, which requires more work, which another artist that I interviewed just a couple of days ago, Mario Robinson, who is an amazing watercolor artist, he works on this in ginormous watercolor piece, which is crazy. Oh, wow. If for those that know watercolor art, you usually don't work that big. And he said, well, it's challenging me also in this time. This is my way of kind of like saying, well, if not now, when, right? So is that what you thought too when you started that project?
Sort of. So I started that project actually probably more than a year ago, and then I kind of put it aside because it was just, it's taken up a whole my work table, and I needed to do other things, and so it's kind of been sitting aside, and I decided to take it out and just start working on it. I've actually been working on it only for, I don't know, about 2 hours a day. So it's very slow going, but I listen to my daily Cuomo these days, and I stitch while I listen to him. And then in the afternoon, my friend Pokey in California does an Instagram live and talks to other artists. So I stitch then and I listen to her. It's like that.
It's interesting. I do paint a lot, listening to these things too, and it almost feels sometimes I mean it's sad, right? But it feels like this is like I breathe in the bad things and it goes out well.
Yeah.
It just like
It leads.
right. It's like inhale, exhale.
Yeah.
Can you show us a little peek of what you're working?
Sure. So I hope I don't give you things don't move around too much. All right. So here is my design wall. That's a home portrait commission that I have just begun.
Huh.
So I'm just laying out the materials, just getting started. And those are some dryer sheets that I painted for the sky. So that's that. And over here, you see my table there?
Yeah.
So this is the one that I'm stitching for a few hours a day. So it's a bed sheet, circa 1950 Soviet Union.
Yeah.
It was mended already by my grandmother, I think, and then I added some visible mending. Can you see it?
Yeah.
And now this stuff is cassette tape. So what I'm doing is I'm stitching it with cassette tape.
Wow.
So here's the corner that I'm working on right now. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So yeah. So I'm just doing really just basic straight stitches.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time because cassette tape is not meant for stitching, so
Yeah.
it breaks. But that's okay. So I tie it up, and I stitch it. So I inherited quite a few cassette tapes. My father passed away 2 years ago now, but he was an avid music listener, so his collection of cassette tapes is now being put to stitching because
Oh my God.
who listens to cassette tapes these days.
I
right?
love that idea. Is so amazing. And then what is you have a vision of what is
I guess you can't really see it. This is Skype, not a great camera, but I drew a fire escape. That's actually something that's in my artwork quite a bit. So it's a drawing of a very large fire escape that I'm stitching the positive and negative areas of it.
so cool. Oh my God, this is awesome.
Thank you.
I love that. So the cassette tape, you said, yeah, it rips, which people like me and you who used to listen to cassettes now how to repair. Right. Or entangle. How fast does it rip when you stitch with it?
It's actually not too bad. So I stitch about 3 feet at a time, and maybe it'll rip once, but not on every 3-foot piece. So, well, I also have, after experimenting with a few lines, now I pull it gently and I help it along, and we have found our way of working now. So
That is such a great idea.
those people, I don't mind that it rips and that I'll tie another knot to, I'll keep it in there, and I don't replace it. I'll just make a knot and I keep going. So I'm okay with messy and yeah.
what's your fascination? I mean, I love those too, but what's your personal connection and fascination about those fire escapes?
Uh,
Did you have one when you grew up in the place?
well, I did when we moved to New York and I lived in Queens. The very first two apartments that I lived in had fire escapes, and it was I suppose it was new to me because St. Petersburg, Russia didn't have fire escapes, um, and I don't know, they really represent New York to me. There's just something so gritty and industrial in it, and I think of it as like an iron spine of the city, like that's the strength of the city comes from the fire escapes that are holding it up, even though they're not actually holding it up, they're on the side of the building.
Yeah, but people are using them in, just now, like a lot, like
Yeah, even more than usual.
exactly. That's where you get out and breathe some fresh air, and people are go out at 7 and clap for,
I know. Oh, that's so wonderful. I wish I lived in New York City now so I could participate in the 7 o'clock clapping.
Yeah, it's a
Here in
healing,
suburbia, none of that.
right? It's a little bit quieter up here. I live uptown Jersey City, and downtown there's a lot more. But I
Mhm.
think part of it is too that most of the people here are essential workers, so they are
Right.
not home to do this at 7
Yes.
p.m. So, but I have one neighbor who has tried to get us out like all the
Oh, that's
time, which
wonderful.
is very sweet. So maybe we pick it up here.
Go for it.
Yes, that was wonderful, Natalia. Where can people find you to purchase some of your amazing art, see your art, um, or commission your art?
Okay. Well, all of that can be done on my website, which is artbynatalya.com. That's Natalia with a Y. Um, yeah, from my website, I have some smaller pieces that are for sale on my website, and all my information about commissions is there. And I also have artwork on SachiOnline.com and Artful Home. And all my teaching information is on my website as well. So hopefully the workshops that are scheduled for the fall and winter will still take place.
Yes, I can highly recommend taking an in-person class with you as well, or online if you do them. But it was the best experience, very
Oh,
inspiring.
thank you. Well, hopefully that'll hold. I'll be teaching actually in upstate New York at the Hudson River Valley Art Workshops, and that's a 5-day workshop that's going to be at the beginning of December. I hope that it's a beautiful, beautiful place.
That's on my wish list for some time to take a workshop there. It looks just amazing as a place
It is,
to
and the
go
food is incredible too.
in upstate New York.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Thanks for your
Thank you,
time,
Natalie.
and can't wait to see more of your big project there. Now that we have seen it, it's gonna be like, when is she posting more about it?
It's a very slow progress,
Yeah.
though.
So have a wonderful day and stay safe.
Thank you. You too, Natalie. It was so nice to talk to you. Bye.